and then we will start firing off some questions. Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly Baker. I own Molly Dogs Training. We do all kinds of like basic pet training. We specialize primarily in service dog training and their dog training.
My name is Sarah Baker. Again, not related, but we should be. And I own Baker's Acres Canine Academy in Springville. And let's see, pet dog training only. I'm not specialized. I guess the only specialization I do is I work with families. I love little infants all the way up to 90-year-old children. So that's kind of our claim to fame, is working specifically in home with your entire family, because we believe that the family that trains together stays together.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Fredrickson. I am the head dog trainer over at Camp Bauer in South Salt Lake. My specialty is going to be like reactive dogs, so that's something that I really enjoy. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you to our panel for being here. All right, let's kick this off. Who has a dog training question for our panel of dog trainers? Anybody? Give us a question. Like say, your questions are better than my questions, so. All right, then I will pick it up. Okay, first question on my list of questions for our dog training panel. How do you incorporate play into your dog training sessions?
We usually do like with, especially with our service dog training, we're doing a lot of like heavy focus-based skills, which can kind of exhaust the dog's brain. So we usually do like little play breaks dispersed in between. I actually tell all of our clients that are coming, that are just starting out in the beginning of service dog training, I have them bring tugs out in public with them, so that your dogs are getting little breaks to kind of get out that excess pent up frustration and that sort of thing. Like that's rarely what we do.
That is a really good question, Andrew. One of my favorite things to do, because obviously if we're working with families, we need to make it so much fun for the kids. If the kids think it's boring, well, yeah, for sure the dog's gonna think it's boring. So I like to make games of the interactive behaviors that we're trying to teach the dog, or we're trying to stop a bad behavior. How can we turn that into a game? And I love putting the kids in charge of these games and play with the dog. So that way the kids are motivated to be involved in training.
So what I do quite a bit is I actually use play as a reward for the dogs. So I always pay my dogs for whatever they're doing. So play is a really fun thing to do with them, especially working like with reactive dogs. I want them to get like a tunnel vision on a positive thing, not necessarily the thing that they are reacting to. And so that's a really good way to kind of get their tunnel vision back on me instead of that negative thing that we're trying to get them away from.
Awesome. This is going to be great because you're going to see that all of us trainers do things very differently. Even though we may use the same tools or the same reinforcers, like we do it very, very differently. So yeah, one of the big reasons why when you're looking for a dog trainer to do your research and find what works best for you and your dog. All right, next question. What are some simple tricks or commands that owners can teach their dogs at home?
So simple tricks and commands, I think the one that I always go to is probably going to be sit. So it's probably going to be the first thing that you always teach your dog. Shake is a lot of fun too, just to kind of get them to do some target work. So those are the two commands that are relatively simple that a lot of people do at home with their dogs.
The number one most important command, I would say, for me and my clients is the dog's name. If you don't have their attention, All other commands go in one ear and out the other. Okay? So some trainers might teach a focus command of some sort. I just use the dog's name. The dog's name to the dog is not an identifier. It's not an identity. It is, hey, I'm talking to you, you look at me. That's how I like to teach the dog's name. So if I want to teach, that's literally the first thing that we always teach all of our clients. Regardless of whether or not the dog actually knows their name, we actually try to teach it from the very beginning. This is how you do it, so that way the dog understands to look at you every single time they hear their name.
Yeah, those were part of my answer largely. I mean, one that we go through with all of our clients is going to be the touch cue or targeting. I love this one because it's like the easiest thing you're ever going to teach your dog. Like your dog will learn so fast. But it's so easy to build on, and there's so many different things you can use it for. I use it with mouthy puppies as a way of like, don't put your mouth on me, use your nose instead. It's a great way to incorporate like as a game for dogs and young kids to play. It's foundational in our service dog training. There's so many things that build off of targeting behaviors, be that various alert behaviors or being able to hit handicap buttons, hit emergency buttons, all kinds of stuff. I've seen, one person, or I've had a few people say like, oh, my dog won't come to the come cue, but like if I say touch, the dog will come running because they love the touch game. So it's so simple and so easy and so basic and great to build on it.
Love those answers. For me, mine is place. I love teaching a place command. Teaching my dog to go settle, relax, and be calm somewhere in the house that is consistent, where they feel most comfortable, and then pairing that with things like when my kids have friends over, it gives them somewhere that they can stay safe without being confined to their crate, or anytime somebody comes to the front door, rings the doorbell, knocks the door, I have it set where my dogs will see that as a cue to go to place and stay there until they get released. Okay, before I ask another question, any questions from our audience? All right.
Okay, how would you train a dog that likes to lunge at people and lunge at other dogs and like react to that? How do you deal with reactivity in like public places?
How do you react to reactivity in public places?
So part of how you're going to react is dependent on why is the dog reacting. So is this excitement reactivity or is this like fear-based reactivity? The funniest video I saw of someone was like, when you have a dog with fear reactivity, a lot of times people's instinct is to tighten up on the leash, but tension creates tension. So if you tighten up, the dog's going to tighten up. And I saw this video of a guy that was like walking, being so cool, and there's another dog coming, she reacted dog. It's just good. I just think, be so calm. So, being able to just turn and walk away and be really calm. But I mean, I have a pretty strict rule in general of if you pull me to go see anything, we're automatically going the other direction. Lunging in any way is never going to get you what you want. So if it's, so even if this is like an excitement-based reactivity, we're teaching the dog that the lunging, the jumping, the pulling, this is only going to get you farther away. It's not going to get you what you want. And if it's fear-based, we're teaching the dog it's okay to walk away. You don't have to stay in the situation that you are uncomfortable with. And so giving the dog a new tool of how to respond to the situation. So I'm a big, big fan of turn and go the other way, teaching flight and retreat cues, stuff like that.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, this is one of probably the most common issues of why we get called as dog trainers, right? My dog lunges at other people or other dogs or bicycles or is reactive in the car or reactive at the window in the house, right? So again, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but it is important to actually determine, first of all, what is the dog reacting from? what is that feeling? What is that emotion that dog is feeling? If it's more of an aggression base, absolutely shut it down. Tell them to knock it off. Right? That's my stance. I'm sorry. But you're gonna knock it off and you're gonna sit there and relax. Okay? If it is fear-based, and this is all determined based on your own knowledge and analyzing the dog's behavior in general. What is the dog in general? Is it calm and relaxed like this dog on the floor, not caring in a world of what's going on? Fantastic. It's probably something that just startled the dog. Okay, get up, move around, and come back to where you were, right? But if the dog is constantly alert, looking around, concerned, ducking around behind things, okay, that's a fear base. We're gonna do similar to what Molly suggests, is get the dog back, attention back on you and relax. And then come back forward to where that fear is. Earlier, we did that demonstration with a couple of dogs up here, and hopefully we'll get to do it again with some of the rescue dogs. How do you handle a situation when you have a dog that might be a little sketched out? Don't run away from the fearful thing if it's safe. If it's not safe, turn around and go the other way. If it is safe and you want to overcome this dog's behavioral issue, you're going to go up to it, wait for that dog to get a little tense and a little reactive. Fantastic, get that dog back focused on you, reward it for looking at you, and then move closer, and then closer, and then closer, and pretty soon you're right on top of it. Okay? If it's an aggression-based thing, you better consult with an aggression-based trainer.
So, definitely very similar things. So what I would first do is, again, figure out if it's fear or just excitement. My biggest thing is I don't want the dogs to think, cool, especially if it's out of fear, I'm going to react this way, so barking and lunging, and then we're going to go away. Because that's teaching the dog that they're going to act that way and they get what they want. They won that situation. And so how I kind of combat that is we'll start off at like a safe distance if I know there's a trigger for my dog. Most recent one that I can think of is dog reactivity. I used to have an Australian Shepherd who was very crazy around other dogs, and so we find that safe spot where I know that she sees the other dogs, I know the other dogs see her, but she's not necessarily reacting. She's just more kind of sketched out at that point. We'll start doing basic commands, just simple things to get her mind off of it, and each time that she does it, we'll get a little bit closer until we're right on top of that scary or exciting.
So I take a relationship-based approach to my dog training. So if I've got a reactive dog, aggressive dog, the first thing that I want to do is have my owners do a self-check of the relationship they have with their own dog. Then what I want them to do is have them work on the 4 basic key behaviors: sit down, stay calm. Because what that's going to do is actually build a level of confidence in their dog, build up a reward system, which will build trust, build confidence in the dog. Because what I typically see is that reactivity typically stems from a lack of confidence. So by building the confidence in the dog, building a level of trust with the owner, then what we can do is utilize that relationship to distract away from their triggers. Then they can use that reward system that we have in place to begin to create positive associations with those triggers by stepping off to the side, practicing sit, practicing down, practicing stay, practicing come, over and over and over at a safe distance away from the trigger, and then building from there to help overcome the reactivity to whatever that trigger may be. We also do a lot of play work, so we incorporate a lot of tug and a lot of catch and crude games. So often we'll incorporate those things, again, just to build that positive association with those triggers, so that the dog has a more positive reaction versus an aversive reaction to those triggers. Okay, any other questions from our audience before I move down my list here? Sheila's got a question.
wondered, my dogs bark whenever any stranger comes, and I wish they wouldn't. They're in the backyard, and then they bark when somebody comes to the door, and I almost go outside the door and talk to the person. And is there anything I can do to fix it?
So what Russell's barking in the yard whenever people. Alright, so the question is barking in the yard as people are walking past or approaching the yard. Sarah, you can take it first.
Oh, I love this question. Good job, Sheila. Thank you for your question. So, first of all, I'm going to piggyback on what Andrew said. What is your relationship with your dog? Okay? This is a rhetorical question. Think about it, right? What does your dog, how does your dog view you when you say no, or enough, or quiet? Do they actually listen? Or do they give you the middle finger and just keep doing whatever they want? Okay? That is where, regardless of how the approach is going to happen, right? How you address the issue, your relationship with your dog is number one, most important, right? So, if you go to if the doorbell rings, ding dong, and you go over and you check on the door, and your dogs are barking at your feet, barking, going crazy, and they're going to try and get past the door, first of all, you shouldn't be answering the door yet. Number one, get your dogs to stop the behavior and get to a safe place, then go answer the door. If it's anyone of significance, right? If it's a neighbor, a friend, a family member who's coming over, they're gonna wait. They're gonna be polite. They know that you're coming to the door, okay? If it's a solicitor, who cares? Let your dogs bark as much as you want. So sorry, I'm too busy, okay? You wanna make sure that your dogs understand, though, that you're in charge before you go open the door. Because what does the doorbell mean? Excitement. The doorbell represents excitement. Opening the door represents excitement. Going on, getting the leash and putting the leash on, going outside for a walk represents excitement. Okay? So all of those things that you're addressing, people walking past on the sidewalk. Oh, this is a fun one. The dogs barking out the window as someone walks by your house every day, or the UPS delivery guy is dropping something off, or you ordered something on Amazon. Ding dong, dropping a package, and the dog runs to the door and runs to the window. Okay? How do you stop that? First of all, you need to get the dog's attention. Hey, knock it off. That's enough. And then remove them from that situation and tell them to go and sit. That's why it's important to teach those commands, first of all. And then you need to reinforce that command. If they know sit and down or stay and leave it, and they don't follow through with that, you need to listen. You need to make them listen, and don't answer the door until they relax. Does that make sense? So this is a good drill. Get the kids involved. This is a good drill, okay? Go home tonight and practice. Doorbell ditch. I'm giving the kids permission to doorbell ditch, okay? Yeah, okay? You're gonna doorbell ditch. The dogs are gonna run into the door. You're gonna stop. You're gonna turn to them. You're gonna block them away from that door. You've probably seen Cesar Millan's videos all the time. Block the door, back the dogs off, and tell them to be quiet. They're going to keep doing this behavior at the door as long as they have empowerment at that door. Back them off the door, tell them to settle down, relax. If they don't settle down and relax, move them back further, then go and open the door. Be prepared to shut the door. You're going to be doing this a lot. That's okay. Every mistake they make is the next step to getting better. Okay? That's your homework.
So it sounds like you're talking about alert barking. There's so many different types of barking. So alert barking. So, I mean, basically what's going on is your dog has given itself a job, and it's a job that we don't like. And I do kind of have the attitude of like, yeah, absolutely, tell me when someone is here, but once you've told me you're done, you don't need to get in this frenzy, like if I say you're done, you need to be done. But if you have dogs that are kind of getting into this mindset of where they can't stop, I really like kind of what Sarah talked about is I have like an entire handout that I'll give clients and this is how we're going to break down all of these triggers and help your dog, which basically I'm giving the dog a new job. So you told me someone's here and now your job is to sit on this location and my job is to decide who comes in the house and who doesn't. So this is your new job now. And for like some dogs that, you know, maybe this is hard, okay, there's a different job that we need to pick for them. So like I had one client that she did the talking buttons with her dog. And so we did, you know, the dog barks at the window and it was driving her nuts, and so she did a stranger button. And so now instead of barking and freaking out, the dog just stranger, stranger, stranger. And it's like, that was so much more. It's like, I can handle that, you know, absolutely. Just sit there and stranger, stranger, you know, and that was great. Since I learned how to do hearing alert work, this stuff is hearing alert. And I've actually found like, yeah, if your dog is insistent that I have to alert you, just change the alert behavior, give them a different way to alert you. And so, yeah, I've become a big fan of transferring it into that different alert behavior of, you know, don't bark, you know, bark and then come tell me about it. And you know, a lot of dogs, because it's a big behavior, we want to give them a new big behavior. So this may be like, this is one of the only chances that you're going to get to come jump on me. I'm going to give you permission for it. And then dogs are like, this is the best thing. And so then instead of freaking out barking at the door, they're going to be running to you and be like, there's a person. I'm so excited. I got to jump. And you're like, yeah, good job. Thanks for telling me. So I'm a big fan of just the whole give the dog a new job to do, especially because when they're getting in those barking frenzies, they're stressing themselves out. This is not a job, when you really think about it, it's not a job that they enjoy. It's just a job that they've taken on, and they're causing themselves stress. So yeah, definitely, you know, like Sarah said, we need to get rid of those triggers that they can flip in the face of, you know, the doorbell ringing, someone coming into the door, that sort of thing. But once, you know, give them a new job to do instead. I'm also a fan of doing, you know, so when you hear the doorbell, you know, just when your dog is not paying attention, just go sneakily ring the doorbell and then act like absolutely nothing happened. And like your dog's like, why are you barking like weirdo? No one's here. Why are you, you know? And like if 9 times out of 10 that doorbell rings and nothing happens and everybody completely ignores it, then like it's getting to the point that your dog's going to just ignore it too.
Genius.
So there's a couple different ways that you can go about this, obviously. I allow my dog to bark, especially when things are passing the door or someone knocks at the door. But I cut it off at a certain time frame. So I let them bark maybe once or twice, and then I have a very clear cutoff of, nope, we're done, that's enough. If they continue to bark, I try my best not to actually touch them. Look at them or talk to them, because that's actually reinforcing that negative behavior. And they'll repeat it. So I'll give them a couple barks, whatever your guys' count is, mine is 2. And I will go up in front of them, say enough, have a clear platform report, give them about 3 to 4 seconds. If they continue to bark, then what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of back them off, try to either put them in a timeout situation, and that timeout situation isn't anything negative. It's, you need to calm down, I need to calm down. If it's a situation where you are able to kind of wait it out with like a friend or a family member that are ringing the door, or someone that's just putting paper on the door, just wanting to make sure it's knocked or whatever, then I'll wait it out, and as soon as they're quiet and calm, I give them about 3 seconds of being quiet and calm, and then I reinforce that and I add a word to it. So my word for my dog is going to be quiet. So enough is, okay, be quiet, please. And then once they are quiet, I'll say quiet, and I'll give them a reward. Depending on what the reward is, it's treats, affection, toys, whatever it may be. And then, of course, getting them used to it, so desensitizing them to it. For knocking, doorbells, whatever it may be, even people passing. I use YouTube quite a bit for that, just so I can play that in the background. And so if you don't want your dogs to acknowledge it whatsoever, that's a really good thing to do with them, just help them desensitize. But if you're okay with them barking once or twice, just make sure you have that clear cutoff of, okay, I'm done, I understand there's stuff over here, thank you for telling me.
You're getting a lot of great answers here. Okay, so my take I am a big advocate for teaching dogs an off cue. I do a lot of rewarding for behaviors, but where my dogs are doing nothing. And then adding in the distractions of doors knocking, the doorbell, kids running through the house, things like that. One thing that I've found most successful for alert barking is pairing the doorbell or pairing somebody knocking on the door with a go to your place cue. So that knock and that doorbell actually becomes the cue to go to a place. My dogs bark when people come to. I've got German Shepherds, they're very loud. And so when somebody comes to our door, they ring the doorbell, my dogs are barking all the way to place. But the second they get to place, they lay down, they're calm, they're relaxed because that is their off switch. Place becomes the place where they switch off, where they're calm, where they're relaxed. Very often they pick up a bone or a bully stick as they're running over to place, and they'll go lay down because I've built up the association between the doorbell means go to place, take care of yourself, self-soothe, relax, while I take care of whatever's happening at the front door. Awesome. All right, any more questions from our audience? I'll come to you. Looking for some alternatives to squeaky toys for dogs and public. He loves squeaky toys for them, especially in a work environment. Squeaky toy, it helps him, but it's very distracting for everybody. So let me just make sure I understand the question. The question is, where we've got a dog that loves squeaky toys. We're looking for alternatives to squeaky toys so that it's not so disturbing to people around them, correct? Just to get the energy out? Okay. Is it just while you're out working with him or? Okay.
If you have a dog that loves squeaky toys, one thing is Kong actually makes squeaky toys that you can turn the squeaker on and off. So you can kind of get the dog where they already really like it at home, and then once they're driving you nuts, or if you want to go somewhere and not disturb other people, you can turn the squeaker on and off, which I love. As far as working dogs, I'm a big fan of tug in general if you're needing to release that excess pent-up frustration. If your dog doesn't like tug, it's because your dog has not been taught how to play tug. And so making sure that you're building that motivation and that drive so that they can get kind of that excess pent-up frustration, anxiety, and that sort of thing out. And then if you're needing more so for a working dog, if we're working on settling type behaviors, what you've got that he's working on right now, I love that sort of thing. Any kind of, I tell my clients quiet chews, so this guy has a ton of awesome quiet chews. I bought a couple of big chew rolls, those are awesome. I look for stuff of you need to settle for as long as you can, and then I'm going to give you something to kind of work on and entertain yourself. There's usually going to be some kind of chew to work on. So.
Ditto. I'll just steal that. That's great. I like that. I don't deal with that problem.
So I don't necessarily deal with this problem a whole lot, but something that you could use, of course, like the speechless toys, I think that's awesome. I know that Tom made those. But getting a toy that they can kind of have that same feeling of trying to squeak something, just not having that squeak, and then of course tug's always great, and then also just kind of redirecting them into that trick. So basically, just what she said was awesome.
So my favorite toys are the outward hound fire hose toys. So they're actually really good because they're very tough and very durable. They have a squeaker inside them, but it is very quiet. You can barely hear it at all. So the dog still gets the satisfaction of being able to squeak, but without the obnoxiousness to everybody else around you. So that's my favorite, and that is something that we carry regularly upstairs at Ruff. All right, questions. Any more questions from our audience? Okay, I'll move down my list then. Okay, the next question on my list. How do you recommend preparing a dog for a visit to the vet or a groomer to reduce stress?
How to prepare for the vet or the groomer, because it is inevitable. Especially, okay, raise your hand if you have an oodle of a doodle. Yeah, okay, oodles of doodles, okay? If you have one, it's a fact of life, you're gonna have to get them used to getting groomed, whether you do it yourself or you get a professional to do it. Those of you who don't, who have smooth-coated dogs, you might do it at home, okay? You don't necessarily have to have a professional do it, but your dog needs to be groomed regularly. Even these little short-coated chihuahuas, they need to be brushed and get all that dead hair out. So how do you get all that done? Well, first of all, it's ideal if you can do it at an early age, right? Get them desensitized when they're babies, handle them all the time. Hold them, play with their toes, toenails, get some little nail clippers and just trim off the very tips of the toes. Play with their ears, play with their tail. You're gonna have to examine their butt every couple of times, they got anal gland problems, okay? Touch them all over. Get them used to getting their legs touched and their backs touched and their faces touched, and lift up their lips to look at their teeth, okay? You can do this at home with older dogs too. Just do it in small little increments. I would do it during meal time. So get their food and give them a couple of kibbles, and then touch a paw. And then grab a couple of kibbles and touch a tail. Grab a couple of kibbles and touch the back. Okay? Do this religiously for a couple of weeks, and your dog will start to relax and get used to being handled. Okay? Awesome.
So for vets and groomers, of course, I am a big fan of muzzle training, even if your dog doesn't need a muzzle, because the situation that you're going to need that vet is going to be when they're stressed out, of course, and you never know what a dog's going to do if they're stressed out, especially if they're in pain. So muzzle training's a good way to, especially for groomers too. Sorry, my daughter's waving to me. But getting them, starting them out young, of course, so it's being able to kind of mess with their paws. If you want your dog's nails to be able to be dribbled down, so just kind of sand it down, I always suggest getting an electric toothbrush and touching it to their paws. And then we're going to reward them. So what we're going to reward them with is just totally dependent on you. Food is an easy one for me. My dogs love food. It's kind of ridiculous how much they love. So what I'll do is I'll get a plate and I'll put some peanut butter on it, or I'll get a lick mat, even better, smear some peanut butter on it, and as I'm messing with them, I'll start giving them that. Now they don't get it consistently, so I randomly will take it away, touch another toe, kind of mess with them. I kind of squeeze them a little bit because that's what vets and breeders are going to do. And then take it away, do it again. It's kind of a back and forth. We just want that positive association with that negative thing that they could perceive as negative. And then again, muzzle training, I'm a big believer in it. Again, I work with reactive dogs, but I train my non-reactive dogs to wear a muzzle just to make sure they're safe under any circumstances and everyone else is safe around them if they have one.
I think these guys do some awesome explanations. I want to talk about, so like, what do you do if you have a dog that already is completely at the point where they just can't handle being touched? So I really like, there's a couple of new methods that have come out. Like in the last few years, we're learning so much about what dogs are capable of when it comes to communication and vocabulary and that sort of thing. And their ability to comprehend and understand when we're telling them things is phenomenal and so above what we previously comprehended. And so there's these two methods that have come out that I kind of like to kind of mesh together. One is called the name and explain method, and the other one is the Mr. Rogers hack. And it's basically talking to your dog and telling your dog, this is what I'm going to do. So, and I've had a lot of success with this in the last year since I learned these methods. of basically like, okay, I'm gonna touch your paw, okay? And then you kind of reach out and the dog is like, I don't want that. You just pause and hang out where you're at. You respect that the dog said, I don't want that. And you just wait till the dog is feeling calm and then say, I'm gonna touch your paw, okay? And you slowly work closer and closer based on how the dog is responding. We respect their responses when they say no, but we gotta touch your paw, so we're gonna keep building. And eventually, oh, look, that, we touched the paw, and then suddenly the dog's like, oh, well, you're explaining to me, oh, well, maybe this isn't as scary, and then we go from there, now I'm gonna hold your paw, but it's telling the dog and giving them information, this is what's happening, and now I'm gonna do it. And it's insane the difference, because it's one thing, so like with our service dog test, they have to be able to confidently allow a stranger to do basic vet hits and vet checks and handling stuff in order for us to pass them. And like we had a dog recently that they were in a pretty nasty car accident, and this dog was just like, I don't want anyone to touch me anymore. And completely backtracked his training massively. And this has been kind of what's helped him to work through it. And so last time we had a stranger last week working with him, and he was still iffy on his ears, but he was like, I'll give you my paw. And so he went from and the paws were the hardest ones, so it's crazy to see that just telling him this is what's going to happen, to now he's still a little bit nervous, iffy on the ears, he still has to explain really clearly, but he's freely offering paws suddenly, which is just awesome. And so, yeah, never underestimate what our dogs are capable of understanding and comprehending. They're amazing.
I love that explanation because I was going to tell about something very similar. I have been a student of training between the ears and intermittent vision and teaching dogs to understand what's going to happen before it happens and creating a positive response to being touched. So that's something that I've been incorporating a lot, but then also exposure, plenty of exposure. I think Sarah and Aubrey talked about that, getting them into the vet's office and getting them acclimated and comfortable with the environment, through positive interactions with the staff, and then taking a proactive approach with puppies as well, and making sure that they're getting into puppy brains from a very early age, so they can get used to all the different tools and being poked and prodded and doing the vibrations and things on their pokes. So. Cool. All right. A question from the audience. Anybody? Like I said, your questions are better than mine. So. All right. I guess I'll go. Let's do, how do you approach introducing a new dog to a household that has young children? Sarah's like, gimme. This is Sarah's specialty.
Oh boy, this is my jam. Okay, how do you introduce a new dog into a family that already has kids? Okay, or how do you introduce your old dog to a brand new baby into the home? Maybe this is a grandparent situation, right? And you're going to be tending the little ones, or maybe this is your own child, right? Or you have a daycare. Okay, first of all, honestly, it's really no different than anything else that you would be introducing your dog to brand new. You're going to create a lot of space in the beginning, okay? When my kids were little, there she is, my 13-year-old over there. When she was 2 years old when we got our first family dog. And we took our time with it. We did not want them to interact other than under very strict supervision, okay? When my youngest was born, my dogs had no interaction with her for the first year. I do not want them sniffing her. I don't want them anywhere near her. This might be extreme, guys, but I have heard so many and seen and trained and worked with people who have had horror stories of their children getting bit. And it's not the dog's fault, okay? It's one simple thing that the baby or the child did something that startled the dog, okay? Or it stepped on them or pinched them somehow, and the dog reacted naturally as they normally would. Okay? Do not leave a dog alone with a young child. Even if it's for half a second and you're turning your back and you're going to go grab something, take the child with you. Okay? Do not leave a baby with a little young puppy. Those puppies have sharp claws and sharp teeth. They're going to get hurt. Okay? And the baby, the child is going to start having negative associations with the dog. Because every time they interact, they get bit or they get scratched. And again, it's not anything malicious on the dog's part. It's just natural. It's going to happen. Okay? So, never leave them alone together, even if it's for half a second. Now, how do you introduce them? One of my favorite things to do is incorporate the dog's training into the interactions with the child. Okay? So, here's an example. I want to have my toddler start preparing the dog's food. That's a novel idea, then they get to interact. Okay? Then maybe as the toddler gets a little bit older, and I'm specifically saying toddler, okay, not infant, toddler, they're starting to get a little older, a little more cognitively aware of what's right and what's wrong, and making good decisions, okay? So now I'm going to start having that child give the food to the dog. This is keeping in mind that you've already trained your dog to be respectful as you put the bowl of food down, okay? Another thing I want to incorporate is starting to get the dog to listen to the children, okay? So one of the fun toys or games that I mentioned earlier that I like to do is have everyone in the family, mom, dad, kids of all sorts, even some of the neighbors' kids, get involved. Each of them get some food, get some treats, and they all make a big circle in the yard, and they take turns calling the dog to them and rewarding the dog when their dog arrives. Okay? Just including them in the training process. But again, never leaving them unsupervised, I would say even until 10 years old. Okay? Even some 16-year-olds, I wouldn't do that with. Even some adults. I'm just going to say it. But, be the good judge. You know your dog best. You know your children best. Make sure that you are taking steps to prevent that from happening. Okay?
Yeah, so I think a big one that I often see is children treating dogs like they're toys, and then parents just kind of being like, well, the dog should learn to deal with it, and that's not even remotely true. A dog is not a stuffed animal, it is not a toy, it is a living, breathing, sentient being that deserves to be respected. And so I feel like a really big one is teaching both dogs and kids appropriate games to play together. Like it's so, we also see very common that kids will get down on their knees and they try to wrestle with the dog, and then when the dog plays with them like they're another dog, well then they're upset and, gee, I wonder why. If you act like a dog, your dog's gonna play with you like a dog. And so making sure that we kind of know like what games are not allowed and appropriate and what games are acceptable. So I said earlier, I love to teach a touch for that. I love to teach red light, green light. I love to teach how to go seek. There's all kinds of little games that we can teach so that, these, children and dogs can have really good relationships, but also have good respect for each other. Both children and dogs can learn rules to a game. So a dog can learn what is appropriate, the child can learn what is appropriate. And so that, I feel like that's a really big one, just to add, and then everything else Sarah said was fabulous, so.
Yeah. So today, I actually just recently went through this. I apologize for the little interruption. First thing is just so of course depending on the age. So personal example, she is 2.5. I started involving her with my dogs very, very soon, in a very controlled setting. So they were able to be around her in a safe way. So I use playpens a lot, like puppy playpens. in an opposite way. I would actually enclose her, yeah, with the child in there, and then the dogs were able to kind of sniff around, sniff her, get used to that scent. Even before she came home from the hospital, I allowed my dogs to smell her. So I had blankets around her, and I would have the people that I was living with take them home and let my dogs smell and get introduced that way. Biggest thing is I am a huge believer or advocate for tethering your dog. I don't let my dog roam free if I have a new dog in the house, if I have a new kid in the house, anything like that, because if there is something that's gonna happen, I need to be able to get them as soon as possible, just to make sure that nothing bad happens to our kids. As well as just positive interactions, so making sure that lake mats are great, feeding them around the kids in a safe way. So again, having the kid enclosed or the dog enclosed as we are feeding is a big thing. So
Lots of great suggestions. For me, the first thing I do when I bring a dog home is get it on a structured schedule, and I think that's really important that the dog learns what the routine of the household is as quickly as possible. So that's the first thing I do is incorporate a crate schedule and a training schedule, a feeding schedule, and then invite my kids into participating in that. That way, my kids are helping with the feeding, helping with the training. I'm a very big believer that when training is not a possibility, management is the answer. So I do a lot of management with a new dog coming into the home in the beginning with my kids. So anytime that I can't supervise my dog and my kids together, my dog gets kennelled, or my kids get kennelled. Just kidding. So that's how I like to approach it. And then again, like Kristen said, creating as many positive associations and creating as many positive interactions as possible, and just helping my kids to understand safety protocols, body language, and understanding what is and what is not acceptable when interacting with the new dog in the home. Okay, next question. We got time for one more question, and let's get it from someone in the audience if we can. Any questions? Any questions? There we go.
So she's very, very treats motivated. How do I get her to like listen to me or do whatever I'm wanting her to do with treats? Because I give her treats all the time, right? But I also want her to get used to knowing what to do without being sort of like too much. So I think it's important to recognize the 5 basic types of rewards that we can use for our dogs, and recognizing when is an appropriate time to use them and when we want to shift over. So treats and food, we use these because they have intrinsic value to them. We don't have to teach a dog that food is valuable. If they don't eat, they are going to die. So like it's automatically valuable, but we want to use food whenever we're teaching something and when your dog is in the thinking brain, because it's something that we can instantaneously reward the dog. They've gotten it, they've been rewarded, and now we can kind of set it up again. So like if you have your teaching sit, we've got sit, treat, sit, treat, sit, treat, sit, treat, and just creating behavior very, very quickly. But if we're, we don't want to use say play as a way to teach a behavior, because if you're like, sit, good job, good boy, oh yeah, sit. It's going to take so much longer to teach that behavior. But if we're wanting to build a lot of motivation and a lot of value to something, that's when we're going to incorporate play into it. If your dog knows play is the reward, this is going to be one of the most valuable things that you can incorporate. Then we also have social rewards. So like, if your dog is pulling to go say hi to someone, the reward is walk nicely, you get to say hi, and that's a social reward. If you can't walk nicely, you don't get to say hi. But if you're going to if you're gonna nicely, absolutely. And same with, greeting people, other dogs, anything involving people and other dogs, even just like verbal praise, petting, scratching, anything like that is a social reward. Then we have our environmental rewards. These are the reasons that, dogs tend to ignore us when we're out and about. And so, the environment is just more rewarding than you are. And so if you can find ways to incorporate and make the environment a reward, so I'm a big fan of teaching, interact with me, and this is what gets you access to your environment, rather than just completely disengaging with me and going straight for the environment. So environmental rewards can be huge, and then the last category is going to be behavioral rewards, which these are your basic irritating doggy behaviors, that are natural and instinctual, and so like barking and digging and sniffing and scratching and all that kind of jazz. And so like these can also be incorporated. So I'm a big fan of using like sniffing is a huge reward for a lot of dogs. But it's just recognizing, once we've taught a behavior, and we're in an environment that like your dog knows this, so like once you've taught a behavior, your dog shouldn't need consistent rewards at home. This is an easy environment. So now we're shifting over to those other real life rewards, which are going to fall into one of those four other categories. Out and about, things maybe still be hard, but like we shouldn't be having to use like chicken if we're just doing a walk around the block, right? If we're going maybe to an event like this and your dog has never experienced anything like this, okay, yeah, bust out the chicken. But once your dog is used to the environment, we'll start backing them down, backing them down, on lower reward until now it's like reminding me to be like, good dog, good boy, whatever. And then we're going to talk about those rewards and things that are extra hard, or that we're needing to get back into that thinking and that learning brain.
So the first thing with not having or not wanting to use treats all the time as rewarding is you want to start from when you first have your dog. Now sometimes that doesn't always work, especially when you get an older dog and they've kind of the previous owners have already ingrained just that habit into them. And so what I'll start doing is I'll actually get 3 different treats, and one's going to be super low value, and that's usually their food kind of thing. So little easy things that I can pay them for. I have a medium value food, which is just a little bit yummier than their normal food, and then a really, really high value, which I usually go with freeze-dried raw food. And then that really helps me determine what they get. So they don't always get paid the same for the same command every single time. Also randomly taking away the treat. So when you get that motion kind of going, I like to do something called puppy push-ups, where it's sit down, stand, and randomly I take away one treat. And I'll just kind of keep on doing that with different commands. And you want to do it very randomly about it, because if you make a pattern about it, they will pick up on it really fast, and that's the annoying part. They're like, oh cool, every other time I'm not going to do it every other time. So random, and have that kind of pay mechanism. So low value, medium value, and high value, and then that's how I can slowly get away from giving them treats, because I'll start giving them low value more often, and they're not low value.
Okay. I don't use a whole lot of food with training in general, because my training is more behavioral based, or manners. Okay? If I'm teaching a brand new command, brand new task, yes, you want to use a massive reward system. But if all I'm asking for is good behavior, I don't need to dispense treats every single time, right? I'll keep it brief. If it's a brand new behavior, or they did something fantastic, they get a jackpot. If this is something that you've been working on for years, stop feeding your dog a potty treat for going potty outside. Like seriously. They should already have this down in a week or two, right? You don't need to keep dispensing treats for an expected behavior. If she's only listening with treats, then you need to say, okay, this is the expectation, I don't care if I have a treat or not, you're gonna listen. That's where your relationship will come in handy, right? So that's where that relationship bonding with you will overpower any food motivation. Here's a question, rhetorical, so take it home with you and think on it. If there was a piece of food on the floor, or a stranger was offering a treat, would you be able to call your dog off of it? That's a good scale to say, okay, we need to work on our behavior and our relationship.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw something in that hasn't been mentioned. So I never stop rewarding my dogs. What I tend to do is become a Las Vegas slot machine. So in the beginning, when I am teaching a new behavior, I'm going to reward my dog 100% of the time and become the most exciting slot machine in Vegas that there ever was, because my dog's getting the jackpot every single time they pull that lever and do what I ask them to do. Gradually over time, as that behavior becomes more and more reliable, I'm going to then gradually phase out the amount that I reward my dog. So we'll just do sit, for example. You know, my dog sits at the bottom of the ground, they're going to get rewarded. We do it a second time, they're going to get rewarded. The third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. Over time, I may then start to reward my dog 99 times out of 100, because, you know, the previous day they got rewarded 100 times. The probability of my dog getting rewarded is now 99 to 1. Then the next day it might be 98 to 1, the next day it might be 97 to 1. And it just becomes very random. My dogs understand they're going to get rewarded eventually, but it's not going to be every time. Unless it's certain behaviors. For example, recall. If I call my dogs to come, they're getting rewarded no matter what, because I always want a recall to be very, very rewarding to my dogs. I always want them I never want them to fear coming back to me. I never want them to have a doubt in their mind that they might not get rewarded for coming back to me. But behaviors like place, behaviors like down, behaviors like sit, you know, those things are going to be rewarded, but you know, it might be every one in 100, depending on how well they know it. It might be 1 in 1,000, depending on how well they know it. Or we might layer in a new reward system, like love, praise, affection. We might reward with play. It just, you know, just depends on where we're at with the dog. So. All right. Well, that wraps it up for our dog training panel at this time. We do have the same panel later on tonight. I think it's at 6:15, 6:30. So yeah, if you're still around at 6:30, come back and bring your questions. Your questions are better than my questions, but I think we did have some pretty good ones today. Just want to say thank you to my panel, Molly Baker with Molly's Dog Training, Sarah Baker with Baker's Acres Canine Academy, and Aubrey with Camp Bower, and myself, Andrew, with Ruff. Thanks so much, you guys.